Yo, 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 what up, what up, what up? Top of the morning, peace and love, peace and love, peace and love, everybody. Happy Wednesday, happy Wellness Wednesday. This is your boy, LaShawn Sugar Ray Marston, and we are back again with another wonderful episode of SRDaily. This is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. This is episode 341 of SRDaily, episode 341. 341 episodes in. That means we are 59 episodes away from our next milestone episode, which is episode 400. We are still here at Innovation Charter High School for their Fair Scared sector of their Enrichment Week. Super dope experiences. They've been on some dope trips. Yesterday, some improv with the Black Lady Theater. Today, some cooking stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening. Super dope program. Super grateful to be a part of it with meditation and doing the show and having a talk back. Life is good, man. Life is good. It's always good to live your dreams. It's always good to do what you love. It's always good to connect with young people. It's always good to share your gifts. It's always good to do what you do, how you do it, when you want to do it. So I am grateful. I am blessed. I am fortunate. And let's get this show started. Please do share this live with 5 to 10 of your friends who may be interested in tuning in. Put it on your profile, on your page. If you can, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm going to hit the share button a little bit on my IG. Send this to a few folks. Get them to tap in. And then we're going to get the show rolling. Peace and love, peace and love. Happy Wednesday. It is still freaking cold here in New York City. It's absolutely freezing. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why it's so goddamn cold, but it is cold, man. It's cold. I got a long sleeve shirt, a sweater, and a jacket. And I was still like, yo, I needed a scarf today. Sheesh, especially over here in Harlem, man, by this water. Ain't no joke, man. Ain't no joke. But this is all part of the process, right? Life is ups and downs, man. Sometimes it's cold. Sometimes it's hot. You know what I mean? Can't really predict how it's going to go. You just got to flow with it. But give me 1 second, hit a few more shares, and then we are going to get this thing rolling. We are going to get this thing rolling in just a short moment. Give me a second. Here we go. I hit a couple of shares. Thanks for tuning in. Eddie Kruger, what's going on, my brother? Peace and love. Thank you for tuning in. Infinite Soul 97, thank you for tuning in. CEO to you, my sis Zena, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Sefu Sankofa, peace and love. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to get this show started with our first segment of the day. Today's first segment is a word of the day, and today's word is conformity. Conformity is the word of the day, and conformity is defined as compliance with standards, rules, or laws. Behavior in accordance with socially accepted conventions or standards. The tendency for an individual to align their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors with those of the people around them. Let's read it one more time. Today's word of the day is conformity. Conformity is defined as compliance with standards, rules, or laws. Behavior in accordance with socially accepted conventions or standards. The tendency for an individual, this is the important one, the tendency for an individual to align their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors with those of the people around them. So conformity is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It can be scary, but in itself it's not a bad thing. It's not, right? But it can almost never be a good thing because in conformity, you lose your individualism. In individualism, although we are a collective society, although we belong to families, although we are part of cultures, although we have small and bigger groups that we are part of and connected to, it's very important that you remember who you are as an individual, right? But too many people, especially a lot of people who consider themselves leaders, right? Like I remember when I was young, I'd be like, yo, I'm a leader, I ain't no follower. But the way I was dressing was like everybody else. Even when I didn't want to, I would go to the store sometimes, we would go buy sneakers, and I would like a pair of sneakers, but because my friends didn't like them, I wouldn't get them, right? Conformity, right? I might want to try certain food, but because my friends are eating a certain thing, I'm going to get the same thing. Right. And when we talk about conformity, we're talking about whether it's drugs, whether it's having sex at a certain age, whether it's how we dress, even how we speak. Most of us is just human nature. We conform. It takes a very strong-minded, strong-willed person to be who they are in those ways, specifically when it's outside of what's normal around them, whether it's in your family, right? For example, in America, in a lot of black and brown homes, a lot of families are Christian. A lot of young people grow up not really being a part of it, but not wanting to do something separate, right? So people can fall. Like, oh yeah, you might not believe that thing, but you go along with it just for the sake of going along with it because you don't want to go against it, right? And that's understandable to not want to make your family or anybody feel uncomfortable, to not make them want to feel disrespected. So you go with it, but at what point do you say, hey, I don't want to make my parents feel disrespected. I don't want to disrespect my grandparents or whoever the case may be. But if following something that I really don't feel in my heart, what am I doing to myself? Is that not disrespecting your own self? One thing, I have an uncle, right? One of my favorite uncles, he used to say to me when I was younger, and I didn't like it, right? Because it sounded so cold. He'd be like, yo, I was born alone. I'm going to die alone. And as cold as that is, right? It's true. You have your life. Each of us are responsible for our lives, regardless to your parents, regardless to if you have children, you become a parent, regardless to what your relationship is with anybody else, you are responsible for your life. And if you don't follow your heart, if you don't do things that you want to do, then you can't blame nobody else for your life, how it goes when you become miserable, when you become unhappy. And most people who conform, most people who simply follow others, they ultimately become miserable. Right, I have a family member. I have a few family members and friends, right? Who, so I grew up in a generation where they still preach to go to school, get a good job, and you're gonna have a good life. I know people who followed that. They went to great colleges, they got incredible degrees, they got incredible jobs, making great freaking money, but they're miserable. They are miserable. I know people in my family and my friends, close friends, making $250,000 or more. But they're miserable. Why are they miserable? Because they're not doing what they love. They may want to make films. They may want to be a photographer. They may want to travel and just eat different foods. But because they followed the script, right? They started a family. They got all of these bills. They bought the house. They bought the car. They're in debt. They have to work to maintain that lifestyle. So you ask them, how's work? Oh, work is work. Or how's life? Oh man, same old, same old. It's like, how is it the same old every year after every year after every year? Nothing this year has been different. Nothing this year has been exciting or surprising. There's no magic, right? Now, mind you, there's nothing wrong with having a set, strict schedule, but you got to make space for magic. And the way to make space for magic, the best way to make space for the magic and for the miracles to happen in your life is to follow your heart, right? It's to do the things sometimes that the people around you don't agree with, that the people around you may call you crazy for wanting to do or for doing, or dressing a certain way. I remember when I really started to get comfortable in who I am, maybe 13, 14, 15 years ago, and I was starting to dress the way I wanted to dress, right? With different hats, with shoes or sneakers, and people in my friend circle, they laughed at me. Yo, Ray Ray's crazy. Yo, Ray, he's dressing different. It's like, I'm dressing how I want to dress. I like these shorts with this shirt and with these shoes. I'm going to wear it. Who cares what other people think? I remember a few years ago, a friend of mine's in the hood. I was walking through my hood, Queensbridge, and I forgot what jacket it was, but I had a super dope jacket on. I had got a bunch of compliments on the jacket. Even if I didn't, I liked it. But I walked up on some of my friends, and my homeboy was like, yo, the jacket is terrible. I would never wear that. I said, good thing I don't dress for you, right? Good thing I dress for me. I don't dress for you or anybody else. He said, yeah, but why would you wear that? First of all, we're not even having this conversation. Second of all, to answer that one question, I'm wearing it because I want to. Simple, right? But that comes from a strong sense of self, being confident in who you are, right? And not being swayed. And it's hard. It is hard. I would never say that it is easy, right? We spoke before about fear and fear of rejection, and fear of being, like being an outsider, being ridiculed for being different, whether it's speaking different, dressing different, eating different, walking different, talking different, whatever it is. Nobody really wants that. But again, what's the trade-off? Either you take that ridicule, you take that, rejection, or you take those words with being yourself, or you don't be yourself and you die inside. You die inside, because I'm telling you, you could research it yourself. Most people who live long and they have not done the things that they wanted to do, they become miserable. Or I wish I would have, bought that jacket that I liked 30 years ago, but I didn't because my friend didn't like it, or I didn't because I didn't take that trip because nobody wanted to go with me. Do you know there are people who won't travel unless they go with a crowd, and then they end up not traveling much? and they end up missing most of the things they want to do because they're waiting for everybody else. Don't be afraid to travel by yourself. Don't be afraid to go to that restaurant by yourself. You want to try that food? Go by yourself. You don't need people with you all the time. There's nothing wrong with having people with you, and things are better in community, absolutely, right? There are experiences that are better when they are shared with others, 100%. However, that won't always be the case. There's sometimes you're going to have to go do your things on your own. And a lot of this comes from willingness to conform, or the lack of confidence in self comes from media propaganda. It comes from entertainment. It comes from a low self-worth or view, right? Low self-worth or low self-view, it contributes to that. And so meditation is important, right? Self-talk is important, how we speak to ourselves, what are the stories that we tell in ourselves. And those are all influenced by the people around us, our parents, our siblings, what we're watching on TV. And so you got to really get into self, right? But we're going to move right along to our second segment of the day. We got a few comments. Word, happy wellness and winning Wednesday. Happy wellness and winning Wednesday. Mona Love on the check-in. Second segment of the day, need to know news. Need to know news. It is something that I've been thinking about, reading about, and wanting to talk about. I think now is the perfect time, being that we are around some high school students here in Harlem. New York City youth in subway surfing. Freaking subway surfing. Young people are being badly injured. They're freaking dying. And I was curious what's driving this trend. And so we got an article here we're going to read from a paper that I don't really read too much, but they have some good things every now and again, the New York Post. The New York Post is a freaking terrible publication. But every now and then, even the terrible things make sense, right? So subway surfing trend is killing NYC kids at a higher rate than ever. How the MTA can stop it. This is the article from February, so about 2 months ago. 2 months exactly, February 9th, 2025. Kevon Wooden loved trains. The 15-year-old had an encyclopedic knowledge of New York City subway system and dreamed of being a train operator. Instead, on a December morning in 2022, Kevon died after he climbed to the roof of a moving J train in Brooklyn and then fell onto the tracks as it headed onto the Williamsburg Bridge. He is one of more than a dozen New Yorkers, many young boys who have been killed or badly injured in recent years while attempting to subway surf, a practice that dates back a century but has been supercharged by social media. Authorities have tried to address the problem with public awareness campaigns and by deploying drones to catch thrill seekers in the act. It's crazy. But for some, a more fundamental question is not being addressed. Why are kids like Kevon able to climb on top of subway cars in the first place? When Kevon died, literally 2 weeks later, another child died, and another one. That makes no sense. His mother, Yvonne Maxwell, told the Associated Press, saying transit and law enforcement officials haven't done enough. Why should my child have not been the end? Let me ask you guys a question. Those in the audience, watching live, and those who are here. Why do young people climb on top of the train?
They think it's fun, like it's an entertaining activity.
They think it's fun, it's entertainment. What else? A thrill.
I have a...
Hold on. Peer pressure. Anybody else? Why are young people climbing on top of the freaking trains?
They want to make themselves look cool since they're doing a daredevil stunt and going on top of a moving vehicle.
They want to make themselves look cool by doing a daredevil stunt.
So there was a student here. Apparently, he was on my IG Live.
Oh, yeah, IG Live.
And, yeah.
So similar to what he said, they want to be cool. They want popularity. At what point, or what can we do, right? Because we're a community. Some of the parents, the uncles, the educators, and the friends. Do we know anybody who's subway surfing? Said there was a student here. So, I mean, somebody knew somebody who did it at least once. How do you address your friend who wants to subway surf or who has subway surf? What are some things we can say to deter that?
We could say that it's like highly dangerous, and it's like, well, I don't know. It's just highly dangerous at a point.
And
it might hurt yourself like while you're doing that.
100%. So now, what do we do? What can we do if our friend says, "I'm doing it anyway"?
Lock the doors of the trains. I mean, lock the doors where you can go like in between the cars so that no kid can like actually have accessibility going on.
Well, I hear you, but can you lock those doors? No. So what can you do? What can we do if we're outside with our friends or we're outside with some young people? We taking the train today with young people. Young person wants to go on top of the train. What's something we could do? Their parents are not there. They want to go. No, I'm saying they right now, like, yo, I'm going on top of the train. Yo, film this.
Sometimes just calling their parent, some students will get deterred.
100%.
I'll pull you up right now.
That's a fact. So the answer I'm looking for is not always a comfortable answer, but those your friends, you can grab them and be like, no. Friends fight over pettier things, right? Friends argue and friends fight over things that make no sense. Is it not worth fighting your friend to save their life? Anybody? Is it not worth it? If your friend wants to go on top of the train and ride the train, and you know that it's very dangerous, they can get badly hurt or potentially die. Is it not worth grabbing them and might want to tell you, get off of me? Is it not worth having that altercation to save their life? We have altercations over little things. You talk to my girlfriend. Why are you talking to my boyfriend? We argue over stuff like that in high school, right? We argue over stuff like that all the time. Why you post that thing on social media? We argue about all that stuff. Is it not worth having an argument or potential fight to save a friend's life? I think it is. Right? But yeah, it's freaking crazy. Somebody said, yo, Shatoya, what's going on? My sister has kids. They think they're invincible. There was an incident in Coney Island as well. He didn't make it. Yeah, man, this trend is freaking. And like, I've been asking the same question, right, to myself and to other adults. And like, we're all perplexed because, so again, as the article mentioned, it's not something that's new, right? It's not like the teenagers now are the first ones ever doing it. People have been subway surfing. However, I think some of us have always looked at that like, yo, that's some crazy shit. Like, it's crazy and it's dangerous. And then mind you, as I told you, I've done some dangerous things, right? And so, like, who's to say what's better than another, right? But like, when you gain some awareness, it's like, yes, me riding a bike, right? Wheeling on a bridge is dangerous, right? Absolutely. Me riding a motor scooter freaking down the highway is dangerous. Absolutely. Right? So I'm not saying it's better or worse. Actually, I am. I'm saying that riding on a freaking train, the top of a moving freaking train may be one of the most dangerous things that any person could do. Right? None of us are superhuman. Right? Yo, it's crazy. So let's finish arguing. Yeah, you have something you want to say? Oh, let's finish reading. So one of the solutions is making trains harder to climb. Right. So making trains harder to climb and train surfers more easy to detect with cameras and sensors could be part of the solution. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which operates the subway system, has said it is studying the issue, but it has yet to come forward with proposals to use technology or physical barriers that might make it harder for people to get on top of the trains. Similar to what you were saying, some type of barrier, some type of ways that you can't go through the doors, right? But some people are not even coming in the train and going through the doors. They're climbing from the outside. So maybe some type of spikes up top. I don't know, right?
Now, sometimes they be climbing from like the metal ropes that connect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know what the solution is, man, but I believe that all of us, right, even young people, we got to share our ideas because our friends, our children are freaking dying.
So in my entrepreneurship class, there's a group who tackled the issue.
I remember. Yep. I remember.
Yeah.
And so, this is all of our problem, man.
The
Solution,
they said they want to do a census.
Yep.
Census and a camera, like a 360 camera, that it like an alarm going on, maybe.
Yeah.
There's something.
And the train will stop. Like once the child gets up there, the train will stop automatically.
I don't know if that hurts if the train is stop.
Nah, but this is as the last few years, last year or two, as I've been reading and watching, and every time my heart gets broken because it's like, see, young people, he's 15 years old, 13. I think one of the youngest a couple of months ago might have been 12, right? 12 years old. What could, and we're gonna talk about this later in the show, actually. So we're gonna finish reading, we're gonna move on with the show. So 6 people died subway surfing trains in the city last year, up from 5 in 2023. Taisha Elcock, the MTA worker who operated the train Cavan Road the day he died, is among those who thinks more should be done to prevent deaths. The first sign of trouble that day was when the train's emergency brake kicked in, she said. Elcock discovered Cavan's body between the train's 7th to 8th car. A group of sad-faced teens on the train made it clear what had happened. Did y'all leave your friend back there? She asked them. Elcock said another operator traveling in the opposite direction saw Cavan on the train's roof and reported it over a radio. because of patchy radio service. She said she didn't get the warning. But she thinks an even simpler solution could have saved Kavon's life, locking the doors at the end of the subway cars. That would cut off access to the narrow gaps between train cars where subway surfers use handholds to hoist themselves onto the roof. Lock it when we're in service so people can't climb up and be on top of the train. The MTA's leaders have said that they're looking into possible ways to prevent subway surfing, including engineering solutions, but the agency declined to make any of its safety experts available for interview. Yo, this is crazy, guys. Crazy, crazy, crazy. We are going to get into why so many young people live recklessly, right? Fu said, word, I traveled to Cuba alone. Incredible. I had a personal tour guide for 5 days straight. What if the fight for them not to, What if that fight for them not to turns violent? I don't understand. What if that fight between them turns violent? Okay, if that's what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think it's better to I'm willing to fight my friend, right? If that's my friend, it shouldn't get too crazy, right? But I'm willing to deal with that than to watch my friend climb on top of a freaking train. But we're gonna move right along to our third segment of the day, tip of the day. Ty, I asked you for a tip, but I'm gonna use that tip tomorrow because when I was structuring the show, another tip came to me. And this tip, very simple tip, and a very powerful tip. Know your freaking self, right? Know yourself, love yourself, trust yourself, be yourself, right? It goes along with the word of the day, conformity. Know yourself, know who you are. I promise you, when we talk about train surfing specifically, there are some young people who are train surfing, not because they want to, not because it's who they are, but because their friends did it, or their friends encouraged them to do it. Peer pressure, somebody said, right? I think that was Sean said peer pressure. Peer pressure is a very, very real thing. And again, because none of us want to be singled out, none of us want to seem like the outsider, none of us want to seem like, oh, we not cool. We do things that are dangerous. We do things, I've done it, right? I've done things, I've stolen cars. Not because I grew up terrible, I grew up like a person who steals cars, but because my friends were stealing cars. It was like, you know what? I'm going to steal a car too then. Fuck it. And I got arrested. My first time getting arrested, I was 13 years old for stolen car. First time getting arrested. Then I got arrested so many more times after that, for so many other things, right? But know yourself. And in order to know yourself, in order to love yourself, to trust yourself, and to be yourself, you got to be able to spend time alone. Not just young people, adults don't want to spend time alone. Like really alone. Not with the music, not with the TV, not with the social media, but really spending time in your own head. Who am I? Why am I here? Those are two of the most ancient questions, most important questions any human can ask themselves. Who am I and why am I here? Like who am I? What do I like? What don't I like? What do I want for myself? What triggers me? Right? What fuels me? What drives me? What inspires me? What scares me? Right? What am I scared of? When I was younger, I had a fear of dying alone. I didn't want to die alone. Not just physically being alone in the street or something, but like die with no family, die with nobody who cared about me. I spoke last week, right? Ms. Kimono comes to my grief group. I do a grief group in Queensbridge every week in my hood. And there was a repast for one of my friends who died. He died. He was an alcoholic. He drank a lot of alcohol. Right, had pretty tough life. He hopped the train. Cops arrested him. He died in police custody. Had a heart attack. Right? Terrible. At his repast, so he didn't even have a funeral. Didn't even have a funeral service. At his repast, hardly anybody came. And the people who did come, they came in and walked out. So nobody sat with his family to really sit and like be in that space. It's come and go. Like he had a lonely life, and that's a lonely death where like nobody really cares. You don't have a service. Nobody wants to put money together to help. That sucks. That was my fear. So what did I do? I made sure I became a good person who is well loved. That if something's gonna happen to all of us, right? We're all gonna leave here at some point. That people show love, right? That was one of my fears. But you got to know yourself, right? Know yourself. So don't be afraid to sit with yourself, man, right? Meditation, right? And you don't got to meditate, but just go spend time in nature. Take a walk in the park by yourself, right? Write you guys a journal writing. Take your journal and write, right? Write your thoughts. We all have thoughts, regardless to what your ethnicity is, regardless to what your financial status, regardless to what your home life is. All of us have thoughts. positive and negative. Journal writing allows us to write those thoughts. Writing those thoughts allows us to get closer to ourselves, to learn ourselves more. Again, who we are. What was our days like? What are the patterns in our lives, right? What are the things we stray away from? Do we stray away from uncomfortable conversation, right? Do we stray away from the spotlight, right? When I was younger and I was in the streets, my friends would take pictures because I didn't like my smile, I didn't like myself, right? I would go to the back of the pictures. I noticed that when I went to prison and I got no freaking pictures. I was like, damn. I don't got no pictures. Everybody else in the dorms and in the cells got mad. Their family sending them mad photos of themselves when they was in the town, as they say, all right? And I got no pictures. Why? Because I didn't like myself, so I strayed away. So I noticed that. So when I came home, what's the first thing I started doing? Taking mad photos. Yeah, I got 40,000 pictures in my phone. Not all of me, of course, right? But 40,000 photos, right? I take photos of myself. Even, I still got the same issues. I still got gaps in my teeth and baby teeth, right? But I take pictures now because it doesn't matter. I realized something. I think I told you guys the first day. The people used to talk about my teeth, talk about me. I realized they talked about my gaps and my baby teeth. They had yellow teeth and black gums and stink breath. So I'm like, oh, snap. You talking about me to distract from your issues, right? So I had to sit with myself to get comfortable with myself. And then once I got comfortable with myself, I started to analyze why people talking about me. Okay, who's talking about me? Okay, this person got that issue. Okay, who's talking about my limp? I got a limp. Who are the people talking about my limp? Okay, the people talking about my limp are the people who got home issues, family issues. They don't know their parents, right? They never had a dad, right? Those are the people talking. Because the people who, everybody got shit. The people who are comfortable with their shit ain't the ones talking about each other, right? But we're gonna move right along to our fourth segment, final segment, our build of the day before we wrap this thing up. Again, the question: why are so many young people violent and reckless? Right, young people are shooting each other at a crazy rate, right? As we mentioned, subway surfing and engaging in all type of reckless and violent behaviors. Now I want to read some stuff. Young people's violent and reckless behavior can stem from a complex interplay of factors, including brain development, mental health issues, right, which I know is a big thing, environmental influences, and as someone says, peer pressure, rather than being a universal trait. Here's a more detailed explanation. Brain development. During adolescence, the brain is still developing, particularly the frontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. This ongoing development can lead to impulsiveness and difficulty in fully understanding the consequences of actions. You don't have to, because the brain is not fully developed, right? And I'm gonna share this. One of the reasons I used to drink alcohol, one of the reasons I stopped drinking alcohol, and I stopped drinking just 2 years ago, right? So at 39. One of the reasons I stopped was because I knew that although physically I wasn't having any issues, I wasn't drinking and falling out, I wasn't drinking and getting into fights, but I knew that alcohol was affecting my brain. And you can never tell when it's going to get severe, right? Everything could be good for 40 years. And then that one drink, that next drink, could be a bad experience and you can never come back, right? So brain development, alcohol affects your brain development. So young people, and I was a person who drank alcohol young. My grandfather gave me beer for the first time at like 3-4 years old, right? Gave me whiskey at like 7-8. That's terrible, right? At 12 years old, I'm drinking alcohol. At 14 years old in high school, I'm drinking 99 banana at 8 in the morning before gym. I passed out in gym class one day. Why? Number one, I was depressed. I told you my dad died, my sister died, right? I went to therapy, but that wasn't really helpful. Let's keep developing. Keep reading, sorry. Mental health. Certain mental health conditions such as ADHD, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and depression can increase the likelihood of risky behaviors and impulsivity. Depression. Shit is real, y'all. Environmental factors. Family dynamics, socioeconomic status, exposure to violence, and peer influence can all contribute to a young person's behavior. For example, poor parental supervision, neglect, or exposure to violence can increase the risk of delinquency and violence. Substance abuse. Experimentation with drugs and alcohol is common during adolescence, but it can escalate into substance abuse issues, leading to risky behaviors and other problems. Recklessness as a psychological response. Some individuals may engage in reckless behavior as a way to cope with anxiety, seek attention, or test their limits. It was a saying. I'm sure Ms. Komoda and Tom may have heard the saying. They say, bad attention is better than no attention, right? So if you come from a family and you do great and nobody gives you attention, nobody celebrates you, you're going to do bad because you want some attention, right? And it may not even be conscious. Yo, let me do bad to get attention. You just realize that, yo, I got 5 95s in a row. I get no pat on the back. I get no let's go to dinner. But the moment I get a C, I'm cursed out, called names, sent in my room, put on punishment. So you know what? It wasn't good attention. I ain't like it, but it's better than no attention, right? This is real things. We're about to wrap it up, guys. Trauma, children affected by violence and trauma may exhibit reckless and risk-taking behaviors as a way to cope with past experiences. Social and cultural factors, peer pressure, gang affiliation, and exposure to violence in the media, so music, films, right, can also play a role in youth violence and lack of opportunities. Limited access to education, employment, and positive activities can lead some young people to turn to crime or other risky behaviors. And that's the real deal, right? That's the real deal, guys. So we're going to continue the discussion offline about why so many of us, if we are, I want to be honest, are violent or engage in risky behaviors, and or why do we think so many of our friends and other young people engage in risky behaviors. But that's our show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Once again, I'm your boy, your host, LaShawn Shagray Marston. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. This is episode 341 of SRDaily. We're here at Innovation Charter High School with the Fear Scared segment component of Enrichment Week. We will be right back here tomorrow, same time, same place, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Please do join us then. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Remember, it ain't getting knocked down. That's the problem. It's staying down. So get up. The power is in you. As always, be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. Peace and love. So let's talk, guys. Tell me, why do we think